Let's drone in the next session. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Executive of General Atomics Global Corporation, Vivek Lal, requesting TV9 Networks, R. Sridharan and Neha Khanna to conduct this keynote interview. Vivek Lal, would you please?
As always, that was a scintillating conversation with the Honorable Minister of External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar. I'm told we have about 10 minutes with Dr. Lal. And Neha, I think we'll try and make the most of it. Dr. Lal needs no introduction. He's the CEO of General Atomics, the man who's been responsible for making sure that India got the drones that it wanted as part of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of an Atmanirbhar Bharat, not just in aerospace, but in defense overall. Dr. Lal, let me start with a broader question. This is obviously the first step, and you played a very important role in making sure that it actually comes through. At one point, it did seem that there might be some hiccup in the deal coming through, but I think you played a role, and so did our government. So thank you so much for that. What next for General Atomic in India? You sold the drones. What else can we expect from General Atomic in this country?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So I've been observing the US-India relationship for quite some time. And the fact remains is the level of bilateral trade, military exercises, R&D cooperation and so forth has increased quite significantly. And at General Atomics, we're no exception in that process. So we have tied up with startup companies in artificial intelligence and semiconductors, as well as larger companies like HAL and Bharat Forge for manufacturing and maintenance, repair, and overhaul. And so I see a very significant footprint, not only at the R&D level and the joint development level, but indeed in terms of services and manufacturing.
One of the bedrock of the new US-India relationship, of course, is transfer of high technology. So can we expect these drones to be made in India shortly? Dr. Lal, would you want to see that happen?
So as part of the 31 aircraft that will be in this package, 10 of them will be flyaway, so to speak, and 21 will actually be assembled in India. And so I see the base industry in India at all levels, whether it's large, medium, small, they all have increased capacity. I think Atmanirbhar Bharat has really taken off. It's been a huge success, and I congratulate the government and the Prime Minister's leadership on that. And I think it really is for all the world's companies to look at and collaborate in various aspects.
Talking about collaboration, Dr. Lal, you have stated in the past that General Atomics has, in fact, reached out to the Indian high-tech sector, and you are, in fact, building a support network within India. There have been partnerships with Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, for instance, and other companies as well. My question to you is, what role do you think a company like General Atomics can make in helping India take its Make in India agenda forward? And, India hopes to be a defense manufacturing hub for other countries in the future. Do you see that happening?
I think so. I think India's trajectory is very robust. Some of the policies, prescriptions that are in place are really very forward-looking. I think there's a lot of synergy in the US-India corridor. Like I said, not only between the OEMs, but as you know, our supply chains, whether tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 partners, and their corresponding partners. And as this ecosystem grows, it's there are various groups of stakeholders that come into play. One is the policy folks, the political folks that bridge the gap together. The other is the bureaucratic system on both sides to marry together, to understand each other's systems. The third is indeed the industry. The fourth, I would say, is academia and research institutions. And I see a lot more progress in that sector as well. And then finally, communications. That's the part that you're responsible for in the sense of laying perception out there accurately and gauging how the industry is actually collaborating.
Right. I'm curious, Dr. Lal, you've been dealing with India for, maybe more than 2 decades, maybe 3 decades even. How is it different dealing with this government, this administration under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi compared to the previous governments? Do you see the global assertiveness coming into play in procurement of defense equipment as well? Can you give us some examples of how things have changed?
Yeah, I think since the US-India defense relationship started, I was fortunate to be at the beginning of that. And over the last so many years, that relationship has only grown. When we started out, there were no foundational agreements, for example. In the last several years, foundational agreements like BECA, LAMOA, SISMOA, they've all been agreed to and signed. And that's very important. The trade authorization status and so forth, dual-use technology status, that has all come up to a very different level than when we started. So I do see a huge exponential increase in the last few years from a policy perspective, but also from an interest in the business-to-business perspective. And I think the current government has done all it can to bridge all the right areas in technology so that we can make a lot of progress.
Dr. Lal, since we're discussing tailwinds for India in this session, I want to ask you about how India is positioned globally today vis-a-vis 2 countries, the United States and China. You talked about the India-US relationship that you've tracked for a very long time. President Biden said last year during Prime Minister Modi's visit that the India-US relationship will be the defining partnership of the 21st century. For the first time, the US has agreed to enter into a technology transfer agreement with India. Of course, we are buying those drones from General Atomics. How important do you think this growing relationship between India and the US, especially in the defense sector, could contribute to the India growth story? That's the first part of my question. The second is with regard to China. How important is the China factor in the India growth story? The reason I ask that is because there are many countries now, starting with the United States, that see India as a countervailing force against China today, not just in geopolitical terms because of its growing expansionism, but also as a safer investment destination.
Absolutely. I think to address your first bit, I think the US-India story is going to continue. I think it'll be a bedrock, not just in defense, but in many sectors. And I think that the foundation has been laid in the last several years. I think there are many opportunities on the horizon to move up in terms of going into deep R&D, deep innovation together. Not the best ideas in the world are not for any one country. We are in a global world. And to briefly address your second question, I think the Quad construct has been very instrumental as well, and a big fillip for getting like-minded nations to think about artificial intelligence, semiconductors, advanced telecom, and all these quantum computing, quantum sensing, all these technologies will be critical to maintain that edge over adversaries.
Thank you, Dr. Lal. I think, and we are very grateful that someone like you is there helping India with Atmanirbharta in aerospace from the other side of the US. So with that, we are completely run out of time. We have the PM security moving in, so we need to vacate the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Dr. Vivek Lal.
Thank you so much, sir.